The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count presented by BetMGM. It's a national championship Wednesday, January 14th, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. The show for college football fans that fully understand we're going to have the national title game, but this show does not stop. College football does not stop. Appreciate y'all being locked in and being subscribed. I told y'all BetMGM bringing you the Hard Count as it does every single week. Little parlay boost token out there for the boys. Okay, so if you are into the national title game, I think that first half number is worth looking at when it comes to the spread. I think the total is worth looking at if you want to make a little parlay action there. But maybe you're like, hey, JD, I like college football. In fact, I love college football, but there's also some NFL games that I feel good about when it comes to those numbers. Go ahead and use that parlay boost token. Get yourself a boosted payout. Never a bad thing. Also, never a bad thing to be talking about the national championship game. Just a mere few days away. I mean, we're counting down the days here till your boys are in Miami talking to the participants of the national title game at media days. We're probably going to do a lot of content on location as well with other guests. Hint, hint, week, so stay tuned for that. We got a lot coming your way, so just make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Heck, make sure you're following all the social platforms, Instagram, Twitter, at J.D. PicKell, TikTok, if that's how you want to rock with us. We appreciate y'all being dialed in every single capacity, because I'll tell you what, man, we've been chomping at the bit to get on the road, and we're doing that this week, and I cannot wait for it. Every single Wednesday, though, y'all know the drill. If you're a lifer with this show, you know what it's about. What's being missed ahead of the national title game? What's some things that are maybe flying a little bit under the radar when it comes to this game? Notice, too, in games like this, Keto, isn't it always the X factors? Isn't it always the butler that's in the shadows lurking that makes the big play? The guy that you most medium suspect makes the big play? You know who's not being suspected enough in this game is the Miami skill players, especially on the perimeter. Listen, the line of scrimmage gets all the shine, and they should. Ruben Bain is another species of human being. I mean, Akeem Mesidor could wreck this game himself. The line of scrimmage for Miami on both sides of the football will be how Miami stays around in this game against Indiana and their firepower and all those things. But, y'all, if Miami's going to win this game, it's going to come down to Malachi Toney. They call him Baby Jesus. Now, is that sacrilegious? I don't know, but it's his nickname, and he's been balling all playoff long, all season long, the true freshman. C.J. Daniels, Keelan Marion. Like, very, very quietly, those dudes have been the unsung heroes of this entire college football playoff. And here's the thing, too. I keep saying this, but I want to say it again. The Oregon game, as much of a beatdown as it was for the Ducks, if Dante Moore has half a Mississippi more, there was a couple of guys downfield where I'm like, hey, Dante, you let that loose, baby. Might have a little bit more success offensively. Now, I don't think it changes the outcome of the game because Indiana was just Indiana that day and there was nothing to be done. But if you're doing the math there, football-wise, hey, the Oregon offensive line couldn't hold up, but the Miami offensive line might be able to. I mean, top 5 in America when it comes to sack rate allowed. So you should be, in theory here, able to get the football to these playmakers. And the other part of this, too, even if it's not down the field, you got to see Malachi Toney in space at some point, man. Like, if you want to win in coverage, more power to you, good for you. D'Angelo Pons is a guy and a half on the back end. Do not get it twisted for Indiana. However, though, that tunnel screen action that Malachi Toney has creased the better part of college football with this year, I mean, it felt like it really was the turning point in that Ole Miss game, at least when he housed that one really quickly. You got to see Malachi Toney in space. You got to see Keelan Marion in space. And so it's a matter of coverage plus tackling these dudes in space is going to make a massive impact on the flow of this game, because we keep talking about third down for Miami and, well, they got to live in 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 2 and all this and that. Y'all, they could live in 3rd and 7, and I wouldn't feel great if I was a Hurricane fan, but the answer to that concern could be, well, C.J. Daniels in man-to-man coverage has been freaking automatic all playoff long. Like, I mean, Cato was saying this before we got on the air here. He's like, any Miami receiver with a DB on their back, I'll take the Miami receiver. Why? Because they've done it over the course of this entire playoff. It's been the great equalizer for them. So, yes, Carson Beck got to be talked about. The offensive line and defensive line, going to be a massive conversation in this game. It's going to set the table. But if Miami wins this football game, go check the box score afterwards and see what Malachi Toney did. See what Keelan Marion did. See what kind of timely big plays C.J. Daniels had. That's not being talked about nearly enough. That could be the Jenga block that falls in Miami's direction and allows them to be national title champs at the end of this whole thing. So keep an eye on that. That's not being talked about nearly enough at a national level. But guess what? We love college football. We're watching the games, so we're talking about it, all right? Sue us. Don't sue us, but you hear what I'm saying. Indiana, what's not being talked about enough, for the Hoosiers? Yo, I don't think we're giving enough credit to Fernando Mendoza, the runner. Notice what I did not say. I did not say Fernando Mendoza, the off-script playmaker. I did not say Fernando Mendoza does a lot with his legs to create more time for his receivers downfield, and he does his best Trinidad Chambliss impression, and that's all well and good. I'm not really all that interested in that part of it. I'm interested in Fernando Mendoza when he flips that switch, gets off whatever read he's on, the clock goes off in his head. He's like, it's time to run, Fernando. Go, Fernando, go. And he hits the gas, and he honestly, the straight line speed for that dude, extremely deceptive. Like, people keep comparing him to a baby giraffe, which I think kind of implies the dude's a little bit clumsy. I see a road runner with Fernando Mendoza. I see him turning over that gate. I see him making long strides. I see that the head not really moving. Just graceful athlete is Fernando Mendoza. So why that's important in this game, if Miami's going to win on first and second down, with Ruben Bain and that whole front seven doing a great job stopping the run, more power to you. That's awesome. But I saw Fernando Mendoza a couple of times in that Peach Bowl be in a third and long and absolutely rip the heart out of that Oregon defense because they overrushed him, or they didn't have a spy, or they didn't pay a proper amount of attention to him as an athlete. And if you do that now, he will make you pay. Again, very roadrunner-ish, kind of unassuming. He doesn't really check all the boxes for you when it comes to someone who looks like they're going to take off for 20 yards. But I'll tell you, man, it'll happen quick. You'll blink and it'll be like, Fernando Mendoza, first down. How'd that happen? You overrushed the passer. If the pass rush lane integrity for Miami is not creme de la creme, Mendoza may be out the back door, and he may get more than 20, y'all. I'm just telling you, his real deal athleticism in that vein. Now, another thing that's not being talked about enough, and Cato brought up a great point before we got rolling here, man. There's a common opponent here with these two teams. Ohio State played Indiana on December 6th. Ohio State played Miami on December 31st. Y'all, within the last 6 weeks, both these teams have played Ohio State. And now both teams beat Ohio State, which is a big reason why they're in this game. But don't forget now, if you want to talk margin of victory, Miami beat Ohio State by more. And so the spread is what it is. I've already given you my game pick. I think Indiana wins. I think they cover. But understand now, if Miami comes out playing the kind of ball they played against Ohio State, where they're running the football, they're not making mistakes, they're controlling time of possession, they are being the more physical outfit, and they're controlling the tempo of the game, do not be surprised in the slightest if we're getting into the fourth quarter and you're seeing everybody fire off tweets about, hey, Miami's in this thing. Hey, Miami looks like the stronger team. Hey, Miami in the fourth quarter is the team that I would want to be on the side of with their experience in the deep water. Don't be shocked now if Miami plays their best brand of football and makes that spread and your boy look a little bit foolish. So I can't wait for this one. Again, we'll be out there for this one, but not nearly enough conversation around the Miami receivers and their impact on this game. And then also, quite frankly, Fernando Mendoza and what he can do to break the pass rush of this Miami defense if they don't give him the proper amount of attention, man. What are you going to do? Cato, I made a couple references to things you said before we got on the air here, man. The Ohio State comparison between those two teams, which is a stat/take by Cato, I thought it was a great point, man. That in itself, I mean, those games are played within the last 6 weeks of this game being, or I guess it's about a month or so of these games being played. Just overall thoughts on how these teams match up and how much stock you put into that Buckeye win from both sides.
Yeah, I think obviously the calendar's weird in the postseason. We have a lot of gaps between these games, but there's not a lot of games removed from both of these teams playing Ohio State, you know? And I feel like the spread is what it is. We know what Indiana is at its ceiling, and that's why they are favored, why they're favored. But Miami's ceiling is beating Ohio State by 10 points. And in that game, they did some things to Ohio State that Indiana didn't do as well as the Hurricanes did. I mean, you talk about 0 penalties in that game. That's huge, and that's the big part why Ole Miss was lingering in that game. I mean, if Miami's going to play mistake-free football, they probably beat Ole Miss closer to the tune that Indiana did Oregon. Not at that extreme, obviously, because we've seen Indiana do that to everyone. But a Miami team that doesn't beat themselves, that runs the ball better than they did against, quite frankly, they ran the ball better against Ohio State than Indiana ran the ball against Ohio State. They played great defense in that game. They had Julian Sand under pressure. If they can do some of that to Fernando Mendoza, I think that game is just not being talked about enough. It's a neutral site game. Like, it was very much in the same vein of what we've got. It was a postseason matchup, and I think Indiana was clearly selling out and trying to do everything they could to win that Big Ten championship, to the point where we were asking if that's all they had in the tank before they went on this amazing playoff run. The case is there, man, for Miami playing their best brand of football, just like they did against Ohio State. And then we look in this game, and it's a lot closer than people think, and they're right there in the fight, man. So I think that's a case study that's rare in the national championship. We have the SEC days where Alabama and Georgia would always be in the national championship and in that mix, and they have a lot of common opponents. But for two teams in different conferences, man, Ohio State for most of the season was kind of our measuring stick from a talent perspective. And we saw Miami go toe-to-toe with them and be, quite frankly, more impressive than Indiana was. So I think that's a big key there. And if I'm a Miami fan, I'm holding on to that as something to be confident in this matchup at home in Coral Gables.
I'll never forget watching that semifinal game with Miami and Ole Miss. 8 minutes, 28 seconds left to go in the second quarter. I write down, as I'm like kind of charting the third downs, I write down, if Miami doesn't get cute, they will win this game by double digits. And then Miami kind of got cute / also had some self-inflicted mistakes. And then we're talking about a Trinidad Chambliss Hail Mary and should have been PI, should have not been PI, and all those things as it finishes out. But what you just said is on the money. If Miami plays to their standard and their capabilities, which you would hope you're getting here in a national title game, Miami's going to cover that spread, and they might win this football game. And it should not be shocking to anybody involved, for those of us who have seen Miami over the course of this playoff run, and even going back to, honestly, November.
I think another thing, too, is you got an Ohio State team coming off that loss to Indiana. And we were talking all week about, man, like Ohio State, remember what happened last year when they came off that loss and started the playoff. You probably got a more dangerous version of Ohio State playing Miami compared to the one where you see Julian Sand a little bit more frazzled against an Indiana team that was a little bit more talented than teams he played throughout the season. Miami comes in there and looked like they were the team that had more to prove in that game. I mean,
like they just lost.
Yeah, they turned them over more. They ran the ball better. The only thing Indiana really did better than Ohio State compared to Miami is throw the ball. Mendoza made some really timely plays down the stretch and threw for more yardage. Outside of that, man, Miami held Ohio State to 45 yards. Indiana did 58, so like credit to them, but it's small, but there's a lot of things they did a little bit better. Indiana had 5 penalties in that game, 0 penalties in that game. They controlled the time of possession better in that game. Like Miami, if I'm Miami, man, and if I'm Mario Cristobal, I'm watching that film of Ohio State in case we need a reminder of who we are when we're going toe-to-toe to this team that might seem a little scary compared to teams historically and what they've done at this level. But 100%. Don't forget who you are, man. You played Ohio State. They put their pants on the same way you do, and y'all laced it up and we're more impressive. So I'd be excited about that if I was a Miami fan. That'd be my hope there if I'm going to this game.
I mean, both sides should have gotten a motivated Ohio State. Not to go too far down the Buckeye side of this, but like if you're Ryan Day, it's like, okay, now we get back to the top of the Big Ten. We go beat Indiana. We're the champs again. Here we go, playoff mode. Same thing for Miami. What we said all week is like, hey, urgency. They tasted their own blood. We saw them lose 13-10 to Michigan a year ago and flip a switch in the playoff. They just lost 13-10 to Indiana, the Big Ten title game. Here we freaking go. And then Ohio State didn't, win either of those games. So it is what it is. But I do think the point in which you're referring to about like Ohio State and the competitive stamina or status of them in general, it wasn't like it was massively tweaked in either direction. So it'll be fun, man. I can't wait to watch it.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait to be down there.
Blockbuster, man. Yeah, the boys in South Beach, man, is going to be a problem. I'll tell you that right now. I cannot wait. Cannot wait for that. As the national title game is quickly approaching, do not let that distract from the transfer portal continuing to churn. We got some more big commitments for you. Oregon, going to work. You know what? In that first play of the Peach Bowl, D'Angelo Pons picks off Dante Moore, takes it back to the house. You say, if you're Oregon, what's your answer to a Pons? You already got a duck. You go get a Coy. Coy Parrish, taking his talents to Oregon. I think he's an NFL player right now, bro. I'm telling you right now. Coy Parrish from Minnesota. If he played anywhere besides Minnesota, he'd be a household name. This was a huge pickup for the Ducks. And you wonder a little bit if seeing them get taken to the woodshed on the back end over the course of that entire college football playoff game. Dan Lanning's like, yeah, we gotta get a little bit more rangy and up the score a little bit there on the back end, getting Coy Parrish. Huge pickup for the Ducks. Ohio State, couple of huge pickups by way of Tuscaloosa in that front seven. Both Quay Russaw and James Smith taking their talents to Ohio State. Now, Quay Russaw playing edge, James Smith playing defensive line. Both were 5 stars out of high school, and I can't help but wonder a little bit. We talked about Ohio State moments ago throughout this show. You wonder if the Miami loss and the way in which it happened, where Miami just said, we're going to beat your skull in, Ohio State, you wonder if they were like, we got to go get some more big boys up front. So massive pickup for Ohio State. On the flip side for Alabama, it's like, man, we need more Quay Russaws and more James Smiths. We can't have these guys leaving and going to Ohio State, but it is what it is. I'd like to think that Ohio State, while they're always going to be good on the defensive line as long as Larry Johnson's there, I think that there's probably some extra urgency added by nature of that Miami loss, just my take. Going back to Bama, though, they did get themselves Noah Rogers via the transfer portal, wide receiver from NC State. They needed to reload that position with Jeremy Bernard going to the league, losing Isaiah Horton to the portal. Not 100% sure what's going on with the rest of that room, quite frankly. So adding some production, adding a dude who's a big body, 6'2", 205. I think his best football is still very much so in front of him. Before Noah Rogers was at NC State, he was at Ohio State. Now, if Ohio State and Brian Hartline wants you to play wide receiver, what does that mean? It means you're really freaking good. Okay, so him in Tuscaloosa, we'll see who's throwing the ball next year, but I think that is a very sneaky big pickup for the Crimson Tide. Alabama also added Ty Haywood, offensive lineman from Michigan. Again, just a good vibe if you're an Alabama fan to have some more USDA-approved sirloin heading to your trenches on the offensive side. Now, Gentry Williams, defensive back from Oklahoma, he's taken his talents to Athens, Georgia. Dude is productive. 6'4", 4 picks over 30 games. The thing that I like about this for the Dogs is you just add some more experience, a veteran presence into that defensive back room. And Georgia a year ago kind of took their lumps, and I think a lot of the guys that were inexperienced this past season will now be better because of, obviously, the lumps they took over the course of this past season. So a more seasoned group from last year to this year, because that's how time and football works. But adding a guy who's played a lot of balls, got 1 year left, I mentioned the 30 games he's played, I think that's a really good addition for Kirby and the guys. And by nature of how Georgia has used the transfer portal, have to think this was an eval they took pretty intensely. And I also have to think that with Gentry Williams going to Georgia, he will be elevated because that's what Georgia does. If you transfer to Athens, they're going to get the absolute most out of you. So Gentry Williams, sneaky big pickup for the Dogs, and I think he'll add a good little extra veteran edge to that defensive back room. Finally here, Oklahoma State edge Wendell Gregory, staying in conference from Oklahoma State to Kansas State, 6'4", 255. He's a top 15 player for us in the transfer portal. Not just like top 15 edge, top 15 player overall in the transfer portal. I wonder a little bit if this move from Kansas State, outside of Wendell Gregory just being really freaking good, I wonder if they're looking at Texas Tech and their blueprint of saying, okay, if you attack the portal in the trenches on the defensive line, you can help yourself when it comes to that stretch in November where everyone's beat up, everyone's tired. If you have freak shows like Wendell Gregory coming off the edge at full speed, should be in a pretty good position here. So just a good get for the folks in Manhattan, Kansas, Wendell Gregory taking his talents out there. So the portal now, understand, it closes soon here. Closes before the national title game. But even with that being said, paperwork can still be submitted. Don't be surprised now. I'm telling you, don't be surprised when Portal Pete Nakos is tweeting out, hey, paperwork popped up for X player, watch X, Y, and Z school. That stuff will still be happening. So the portal closes soon. Commitments, though, and entries are still very much so in place. So keep it locked right here at On 3 for all things portal, all things college football all year long. I mentioned the transfer portal. One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class with 22 transfers into the transfer portal. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? Now, we got Aaron Philo. That's great. The quarterback from Georgia Tech. Buster Faulkner got his guy. I'll trust him. Eric Singleton from Auburn, the receiver. We like him. I'm excited that we got him from the NFL draft. Again, another guy that's familiar with Buster Faulkner who was at Georgia Tech before transferring to Auburn. It's like, we like that, but we got a top 10 class? Really? Yeah, really. And I think this portal class in general for Jon Sumrall is a good reflection of just the overall
vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from Jon Sumrall during his time in Gainesville. Because what I just said, it's not a lot of flash. It's not a lot of headlines. It's not a lot of get up out your seat and feel super excited about all the things we're doing quietly behind closed doors. I told you, Eric Singleton was the one portal addition, to me at least, that most college football fans were like, oh, wow, who's going to go pro? And they brought him to Gainesville. Good get. The Jon Sumrall era is going to be a lot like chicken and rice. Okay, it's not super tasty. It's not the most expensive way to go about living. It's kind of gritty, grimy, but you know what? You get results. Every bodybuilder that I'm familiar with pounds chicken and pounds rice. Again, not massive flavor, not a big like headline. Not everyone's not taking pictures of that and putting it on Instagram. But with that being said, you get results. You got substance. You got protein. You got carbohydrates. That's what you're getting here with this Florida Portal class. Notice the number of guys they have in here, and notice the number of guys that are tied to guys that are now on this staff. Like they got 22 transfers. I told you that. Half of those guys either played for Jon Sumrall at Tulane, Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech, Brad White at Kentucky, or just a number of other guys that are connected to different position coaches. Like Jon Sumrall's got his offensive line coach from Penn State, couple of offensive line commits from Penn State following their guy. So what does that mean? That's great that you're taking guys that you know, but what does that mean? It means they're taking guys they are 100% sure will work in their program. Like talent is one thing and stars next to your name is one thing. That's all well and good. But it's guys that are full of substance and that you know will be about the right things and help install your culture and your way of doing things in Gainesville. Because that was our thing when Jon Sumrall got hired. Hey, he's going to win on Saturdays. How do you win on Saturdays? Standards, practices, what you do Monday through Friday. These guys they're bringing in now, they're saying we trust the way they do things Monday through Friday. And the thing, if you're a Florida fan too, is like the temptation for a new head coach that has a new logo behind him. Like, listen, Jon Sumrall at Tulane and Jon Sumrall at Troy, you can have different conversations with different caliber of talent profiles here with that logo on your quarter zip now if you're Jon Sumrall. You can go talk to the 5-star, the 4-star, whereas before you're walking up to that guy with a Tulane logo on, it's a lot harder to have that discussion. The temptation is, hey, I got this new allowance. I'm about to go shop somewhere I've never been before. Yo, that's how you go broke. That's how you forget what got you there. Jon Sumrall is like, no, I like these guys. I like these guys that I know my coaches like, and so we're going to roll with them. Again, substance. It may not be the headline takes. It may not be the headline guys that are breaking the social media side of things when you find out Jon Sumrall landed who via the transfer portal. Not a lot of that, but it's your Bailey Stocktons, receiver from Georgia Tech. I told you Aaron Philo from Georgia Tech. Guys from a couple of specialists from Tulane, the guys that you trust, you can depend on, that are going to build the foundation of your culture in Gainesville. So if you're a Florida fan, or maybe I'll say this differently. I think the perception here, if you're a college football fan, is, well, Florida fans aren't going to like that, JD. They like flash, they like splash. They expect natties, all that's well and good. Here's why I think Florida fans are okay with what Jon Sumrall is doing right now. One is you got a top 10 class. No one's scoffing at that. That's the obvious part of this. But I think that what Jon Sumrall has done in a very short period of time since being the head coach at Florida, I think he has communicated and produced buy-in with his team and his fan base that he freaking cares. He's invested. It's not something where he's just kind of figuring out as he goes and he's happy to have the Florida job. Like, I think it's super important for him to win and to win now at Florida. I go back to his opening press conference. He made it very clear, y'all, I'm not patient. I know y'all aren't patient here at Florida. We want to win right now. You win right now by going and getting guys that you trust to play right now, which is what they've done so far through this portal class. And so to put another metaphor on this, speaking to the chicken and rice and bodybuilding side of this, Jon Sumrall being your trainer, you trust his workout because you know how insane he is about it. Like, you trust the workout plan he's giving you. Like, I got to do how many pull-ups? How's that gonna make the lats pop? Just trust me. This dude's yelling at you, screaming at you. He's investing every single part of himself into putting your workout together. You just trust the process here a little bit if you're a Florida fan. And I know if you're a Florida fan, you're tired of hearing about the process because that was something Billy Napier mentioned a lot. Again, this is not that. The way that Billy Napier operated via the portal and the way that Jon Sumrall operates via the portal, I think two very, very different things, and we'll see the proof of that here going forward. So Florida's portal class, top 10 as of right now. But, y'all, I don't really care where they rank long-term, to be honest with you, because if Jon Sumrall and the guys on his staff are taking guys they're familiar with, they trust, to win tomorrow, I think that should be weighted a little bit more heavily than whatever you perceive about them when it comes to ranking or stars, reputation. They're getting their guys. They're shopping where they know where to shop, and they're getting their pieces in place to have culture and to win right now. Cato, you've been high on Jon Sumrall for a minute, man. Talk to me about this portal class and just impressions so far of what they're building in Gainesville. In a very short time now with Jon Sumrall losing the dual Twitter Avi, he's saying, I got one job now, one cell phone, hopefully 8 hours of sleep. Don't know if that's possible for an FBS head coach, much less in the SEC. Thoughts on Sumrall right now, where it's summer all the time in Gainesville?
First, I want to say we got to get you over to the house. I don't know what chicken and rice you're eating, but it's delicious. It can be delicious, and we can make that happen for you. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Yeah, I'm high on Sumrall. Obviously, I'm buying all the Florida stock I can right now in the off season. But there's this little guy named Curt Cignetti who also came from the G5 and brought in a bunch of players he trusts from a G5 program. Just that worked out pretty good for Indiana, right? He went toe-to-toe with Curt Cignetti in the Sun Belt. Just trust Jon Sumrall is all I would say. Like, this is a guy who I trust his eye for not only bringing in talent, but bringing in guys. And I think just as important as it is to bring in an Eric Singleton, a Philo, guys who will understand the system they're going to run. And it seems like an invaluable asset when you think about guys that have come in like a John Mateer and just other guys when you hear the offseason stories of them, those guys being able to teach the offense and relay it to other people on the team. These are guys that can set your culture too. Like having guys in your building that understand Jon Sumrall's culture, Buster Faulkner's culture, and Georgia Tech and the great season they just had ending in the Pop-Tart Bowl. I think that as important as it is getting guys that fit your scheme, I think you're getting guys that also understand your culture. And Jon Sumrall is very into having a player-led culture, and I think the fact that he has made stops at Troy, stops at Tulane, and is now at Florida and has been able to be immediately good at all those schools, and all of them have presented different challenges. He talked about it in his opening press conference. He said he got to Troy, and he felt like he didn't really have to do much roster movement. He could lean into the guys he already had there, make the team believe in themselves more, that they could be a player-led team that can win conference championships, and they rattled off his first 2 years as a head coach. Tulane, it's a Tulane name we're more familiar with. People probably think that, he's just following in the footsteps and just taking kind of the torch being passed to him. He said it was barren at Tulane when he got there, and he had a lot of work to do in the portal.
Cockroaches.
Yeah, he said there's cockroaches going around, man. Willie Fritz is a great coach and did great things at Tulane, and they walked off into the sunset winning a Cotton Bowl, but those guys went with him and went elsewhere, and he had to really adapt and build. I think those two experiences, now being in the SEC, and you mentioned, despite having that logo, still going with the formula you trust and work more. His football acumen, his football IQ as far as just knowing players, knowing ball players, knowing leaders, and knowing guys who are going to get the job done, man. He has my full trust in this transfer portal class. To me, is just making me want to double and triple down on what I think Florida is going to be immediately in year one, much less long-term with Jon Sumrall at the helm. So I'm excited for this man, and we got to get you some chicken and rice soon from the boy Cato.
Yeah, the recipe's pretty simplistic, much like I think Jon Sumrall's approach to the portal. We're going either brown rice or white rice, depending on how we're feeling. We're not over-seasoning. We're going with a sauce we trust. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that for sure. We'll have to talk about that because I'm very interested to hear about the Cato effect being applied to the rice. Maybe the Cato effect applied to the Jon Sumrall's Florida team this year with you doubling down on the stock. Maybe those things, handshake emoji, they meet up. It's nice. I don't know. We'll see.
Time will tell, man. Time will tell when you try my chicken and rice and when we see what goes on in the swamp. I'm equally as excited for both, to say the least.
It's gonna be good, man. I can't wait to deep dive too on some Aaron Philo tape and have our quarterback breakdowns for you, which we'll have here shortly. After the national title wraps up, we will do a little bit of an introduction for different fan bases to their transfer portal guys. So Aaron Philo at Florida, Sorsby at Texas Tech, Levitt at LSU. We will do some deep dives on those guys and break down our findings together, and we'll just talk some ball, man, as we do on this show. Now, speaking of talking ball, I want to introduce a new segment we're going to do here, semi-routinely here, throughout the rest of these next few months. For a lot of these teams, their seasons are over. For all but two teams, their seasons are over. And so with that being said, we've had a chance now to kind of like digest the year that was and kind of put our learnings together, our findings together. What I learned, starting with Texas A&M, what I learned about Texas A&M is that you don't have to pretend the logo matters anymore with them, and not in a negative way, because I think people used to say, well, logo doesn't matter. Look at Indiana, look at Texas Tech. Like, people used to look at Texas A&M as a logo and say, well, they've never won anything before. So therefore, why should they win anything? And this year in college football has absolutely Swiss cheese that narrative to begin with. But I think what you've seen from A&M in the last 2 years under Mike Elko should do the exact same thing. All right, here's my biggest take. New management makes a difference. And when A&M hired Mike Elko, they got the Gordon Ramsay effect going a little bit. Like, the menu was never the problem at A&M. It was always great ingredients. It was always 5 stars and 4 stars and guys that could play at a high level and guys that Bama wanted and Georgia wanted and Texas wanted, and you got them on your roster. But year after year, you didn't see the results. Why? Because everything else outside of the menu sucked. There was no identity. Service was bad. Tables were sloppy. Food was cold. There was no identity. There was no real process in place to maximize that menu and what you had. Then you get Mike Elko in there, and within 15 minutes, it's like, oh, I know who they are now. They got an identity. The best teams in college football, you don't have to guess about what they are. Look at Miami and Indiana right now. Miami's a freaking face puncher. Indiana's a machine. Right now, A&M is an MMA fighter. They're violent. They're dynamic. They're tough. And y'all, they're still getting better. I really believe this. I don't think we've seen A&M peak here in year 2 under Mike Elko. So what does it mean? JD, that's great that you think A&M's, all these things and you know who they are right now, but we still didn't win a national championship this year, my guy. Okay, I hear you. That's fair. But you did go 11-1, right? But you were in position now, the final week of the regular season, yet again, to make the SEC championship game. And I promise you, any given year in the SEC, 11-1 will be good enough to get to Atlanta, so just keep on knocking at that door. What it means to me, though, with Mike Elko in the 2 years you've seen, it means it's once again okay to get excited about what you have in the preseason at a roster level. It's okay to drink the Kool-Aid, because before the Kool-Aid was venomous. You drink it, and you get to October, early November, and it would start to make your tummy turn a little bit, right? I shouldn't have trusted that Kool-Aid. I shouldn't have trusted the preseason win total that I had for the Aggies. I shouldn't have trusted that 4 or 5 star guy. Mike Elko is a maximizer. He's going to get the most out of this roster every single year. And so when you look forward to what A&M is going to be here, if I got Mike Elko the maximizer and I got Mike Elko the evaluator, cooking how he's cooking, I don't have a whole lot of reservations about the future of A&M football. Now, that does not mean I'm picking A&M to win the national title next year. It just means that you can trust where the floor is right now for A&M. Because I think whenever you're looking at a team in the preseason, or whenever you're looking at the team when it comes to future prospects, I look at, okay, what's going to last? What am I going to care about here over this extended period of time? And is there something out there that makes me say, yeah, but... Like a yeah, but would be, well, one side of the football, this coach is awesome, and he, for whatever reason, can't figure out the other side. Think USC, Lincoln Riley for the longest time. I don't think that with Mike Elko. I trust the defense as long as he's there. I trust the offense now here going forward based on what I've seen in a 2-year sample size. Made an internal promotion. We'll see how that goes, but I don't have a yeah, but take on it. They're well-resourced. So A&M shouldn't lose a ton of guys to the portal every single year. And even if they do, they should be able to go to the portal and get what they want from that level. Okay, we got that. I told you the evals, I don't think they're going to miss a lot on their guys they take at the high school or portal level. Okay, so there's no yeah but there. So what's the next task? That's great. So you keep checking boxes, JD. What's the next thing for us here? Do we go win a national title? That'd be nice. It's probably on the list of to-dos. I think whenever you're looking at a big goal, it's best to start in achievable milestones. The next achievable milestone for me, for A&M, that's not winning the SEC, is win the freaking state. Because right now, I think Texas Tech is the team to beat in the state. That's not saying anything less of A&M or the SEC, but Texas Tech won their conference, got a bye in the first round of the college football playoff, and they're swinging a massive bat when it comes to NIL. And also A&M, not to throw salt in the wound here, but you lost to Texas. Now, you had a better season than Texas, no way around it. Do not hear me incorrectly. I don't think you're behind Texas, but I do think now there is a lot of ambiguity as to who is that team in the Lone Star State going into 2026. I think if you ask 10 different people, you probably get probably a bunch of different answers. They'd all probably have a good divide on who they ended up thinking was the best team in that state. And so the reason why I mentioned that, look at where Miami is right now in the Sunshine State. They have that thing in a freaking chokehold. And just like the state of Florida, if you have your state in a chokehold, or you can at least have the majority of your state in a squeeze, you should have everything you need to win your conference and compete for more in the college football playoff and ideally national titles. So the task for Texas A&M, again, become that team in the state. Make it definitive that you're going to be a team here that's around every single year as long as Mike Elko is your head coach because of what he brings to the table, because of the evaluations, because of the culture, and because of how well you're resourced, okay? So here's the last thing I'll say, and this is, for those of y'all that watch this show, you know we've been beating this drum as much as humanly possible because we think it's not being talked about enough by national folks, and it's a persisting problem. Battered Aggie syndrome, I'm prepared to say, is dead. JD, you keep saying this. Well, you know what? You got to apply medicine consistently to make sure you kill that disease. And the disease of Battered Aggie syndrome, in my mind here, with Mike Elko being present, I think it's dead. Doesn't mean that if you don't treat it properly, it can't come back. But I think a lot of people saw what happened this year, and they're like, well, you saw us go to the first round of the college football playoff and lose at home. Battered Aggie syndrome, right? And we lost to Texas last week in the regular season. Battered Aggie syndrome, right? No. Battered Aggie syndrome is not going 11-1 and making the college football playoff. And if you would ask any A&M fan before the season, hey, you're going to go 11-1. I'm not going to tell you that one losses to, but then you're going to make the playoff and you'll lose the first round of the playoff, but are you cool with that? Your second year under a new head coach, where a couple of years ago, you had a head coach talking smack to Nick Saban in blue jeans, and you had no idea what was going on offensively or culturally or what was going on. Are you down for this 11-1 season? In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And nobody in the preseason either would have said, yeah, but that's Battered Aggie syndrome because we didn't win the national championship. I feel like I have to say this with everybody. Like, speaking to everybody that's in contention or expects to go compete for national title level hardware, not winning a national title doesn't make you a fraud. It's really freaking hard to win a national championship. You can be a really good team, make the playoff, lose in the playoff, and say, well, that was still a good season. And I think that this whole natty or bust, playoff or bust culture with the expanded playoff has maybe poisoned that mindset a little bit. Don't let them do that to you. You had a great year. It was year 2. Give it a second. Don't compare yourself to Signetti and Indiana, all those things. Like, just run your race. And Mike Elko, you'll be in more than good shape, in my opinion. So to wrap it up here, this is verifiably now not your daddy's A&M. It's not, the team that would have preseason expectations and win the recruiting rankings, and then you get to the games, and it's like, oh, we suck again. Oh, well, that's not A&M. That's not A&M. With Mike Elko now, A&M's under new management, and the new management is making a difference, and you're seeing it play out in real time. All right? Now, speaking of Indiana, y'all, what happened to us as a society? Like, we used to respect our elders here, Cato. It used to mean something if someone was older than you and they had a little more life experience than you. And I see Twitter yesterday popping off about Indiana and how many 22-plus-year-old guys they have. And in some ways, like, pointing to that as invalidating this run that Indiana's been on and saying, well, they're just beating up on college kids. A bunch of these dudes now should be on LinkedIn. The stat is 47 players on Indiana's roster are between the ages of 22 and 25. Yeah, that's old. That is more often than not a working age. But the idea that that's supposed to be the reason why Indiana's winning football games, like, miss me with all of that here. Miss me, like, football, and I think for everyone that's tuned in here and actually watching the sport, it doesn't matter how old you are. Jeremiah Smith was a teenager last year, was the best player in college football. Either you're good or you're not. If it was all about age, BYU would have a bunch of national championships in the course of the last couple of years. But that's not the case. So if it's not about age, JD, why is Indiana so good? Are they more physically mature? I don't really think that's the difference either. The difference here is Indiana has prioritized experience. They prioritize guys that have actually played ball and gone through different things as a college football player and been in different situations. That's why Indiana's reaping the rewards of having some older players. Like, it's execution that matters in this spot now where the margins are so thin. What do we say about Indiana? They don't beat themselves. You know why they don't beat themselves? Because they got a lot of guys now that have played football that have seen other teams beat themselves or maybe beat themselves before. So now with this many laps around the track, whether you want to talk about them using a redshirt year or whatever different, extenuating circumstances they have to be playing football right now, like, I don't think you should fault. Like, Indiana's not bending the rules here by having older players. And the thing, too, if it was about Indiana having all these older players and that was the secret sauce and that was, the end-all, be-all, was the Elijah Surratt recruiting sweepstakes like this hotly contested situation that I wasn't aware of? Were people beating down Robin Hemby's door to go bring him to their school? I don't remember seeing a bunch of Twitter graphics online about all these portal additions that Indiana had, that being a huge difference. Like, Indiana prioritized what they prioritized. And so what do you point to? You point to Kurt freaking Signetti. Like, Kurt Signetti said, you know what? I'm at Indiana. I got to do something different. I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State and Alabama trying to recruit their guys and winning those recruiting battles. I got to go do something different. And so he did, and it's working. And so I don't understand this idea now that Indiana is somehow should have an asterisk next to them or it's invalidating what they're doing. They took the hard route. They took the unconventional route to be where they're at right now. And just because they're playing for a national championship now, everyone wants to talk about how many old players they have. You should have old players too if that's the secret sauce here. And you know what? I think they will actually have old players here going forward. I think this might be a different way to skin the cat that a lot of people will try to copy here over the course of these next few seasons. Here's the thing that I think doesn't compute to me too with Indiana in this discussion. You can't say, well, Indiana is old and that's why they're good. But in the same breath say, man, Indiana, they find ways to win, but they're not that talented. You can't be not talented but be old. Like those two things don't go together. Either you're good or you're not. I don't care about age. I don't care about number of stars. It's about playing together, playing well, winning, not beating each other, not beating yourself, rather beating the opponent by how physical you are, by not making mistakes. And I think that's maybe something that is the keyest ingredient, if you will, the most crucial ingredient, if you will, when it comes to Indiana. I think the experience they've had playing football allows themselves in a bizarre way to be more malleable and be at a higher level of buy-in to Curt Cignetta's way of doing things. Because you know what? They've seen other ways of doing things, and they've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I think Curt Cignetti, with what he's about, with process, standards, no nonsense, guys that have played college football, they know that way works. They know if we buy in to this way of doing things, we're going to win at a high level. And so at the end of the day now, I think this is going to become more of a trend in college football. And also, too, Indiana being on the front end of this trend, they're going to reap the rewards of it. Because Indiana now, if you look at these recruiting rankings, or the portal rankings rather, they have turned themselves into a transfer portal destination. If I want to go play in the NFL or I want to go have the best years of my collegiate career, I go play in Bloomington. Look at Mendoza. Look at Surratt. Look at Fisher. Guys that are going to go have NFL careers because of their time they spent at Indiana. And you know what? They got better at Indiana. When they got to Bloomington, to where they are when they're leaving Bloomington, they got developed. And so that, plus winning, plus you have to believe now Mark Cuban throwing his hat in the ring saying, I'm in, I'll invest in whatever when it comes to NIL. That doesn't hurt things either. Say what you want about Indiana. Have all the takes you want about what's going to happen to them in the national title game. You're more so, you're very much so within your rights to have those takes. But if you think age is the reason Indiana is winning at the level they're winning at, I think you're sadly mistaken. And again, I'd point back to BYU and say, well, why aren't they reeling off national titles every single year if it's just about having the oldest guys on your team? I digress. So Indiana's going to play Miami. And it's funny to hear Mario Cristobal talk about just where they're at right now in the trajectory of the Hurricanes program, because what Miami was in the 80s was cinematic. In the early 2000s, it was electrifying. Now, your boy wasn't around for the 80s, but I got to see the U 30 for 30. Obviously, the Miami early 2000s I was around for. But the U being back and that conversation has seemed to be something Mario Cristobal has very actively stayed away from. And I just want to try to address that right now as best we can together. The biggest reason why I think the you being back conversation is a little bit nonsense is clickbait. It is what, I mean, it genuinely, if you're talking about the you being back, if that's your take and you want to throw it on a thumbnail or whatever, I get it. I understand it. I don't think that maybe that's your intention all the way, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is, because everyone's going to perceive the you being back, quote unquote, in different ways. Some people will say the U is back when they make the college football playoff. Okay, well, then they are back. Well, they're not back till they win a national title. They're not back till they win 2 national titles. People processing the U being back is going to look a lot of different ways. Think about Texas, too. It's a great way to discuss this. There was never a moment where we as a college football public collectively said, Texas is back. Sam Ehlinger said it one time, and then things went how they went downhill from there, and it wasn't a good vibe, but you catch my drift. There was never a moment where college football as a public said, okay, they're back. But there was a moment when Steve Sarkisian got that thing up and running where we all just said, okay, you have to deal with Texas now. I think that's kind of where Miami is right now. Miami is for real at this point. It's kind of like if you were to move into an apartment with your best friends from high school. You're trying to recreate the good old days. You're not back in the good old days. There's no way to be back in the good old days unless we develop a time machine here in the near future and we can relive our junior and senior years of high school. Like, great. But outside of that, it will never be the good old days. You will never be back. You can say the boys are back, and that's all fun, and that is a great song and reads well on a T-shirt, but it's not actually how it is. Why? Because there's extenuating circumstances, because things are different around you. Like, y'all might be in the same apartment in the same place, but you're not back in high school geometry class together with that same teacher. It's not the same. You're not back to where you were, but you can be taken seriously if you're Miami by nature of the brand of ball you're playing right now. And that's where I think I'll hear this conversation the most. I think the brand of ball Miami is playing with swagger, bravado, physicality, bully-like mentality, that I think is a lot more in line with those Jimmy Johnson teams, those Howard Schnellenberger teams. Like, those I think are more in the vein of the good old days. So if you think the brand of ball is back, awesome. But Miami being back is, I think, a discussion that is sort of a fool's errand, because you'll never actually get a group of people in the same room of a decent number to say, yep, U is back, because everyone has a different definition of that. But when I say the U is for real, I'm not just saying they're for real right now. I'm saying they're for real when it comes to like their runway over the course of these next few years. Because Miami, I think, is built now on actual sustainable things, sustainable principles. Like, if Miami just had a flash-in-the-pan quarterback and it was the Cam Ward year again, like last year's a great example. Miami has a phenomenal year offensively, but the defense is out to lunch, and you're like, well, if Cam Ward wasn't on that team, what is Miami football? You're not saying that anymore. You're not talking about a scheme that you broke out for the first time and nobody seems to have the answer for. You're not talking about things that are a sugar high. You're talking about the way Miami's built their roster. They have stockpiled the trenches, offensively and defensively. Jackson Cantwell, I mean, he's going to be an absolute war daddy when he shows up on campus for the Coral Gables or shows up actually playing football for them. True freshman, going to be a dog for them next year. Trenches are stocked. All right, understand that. What you're seeing with Mawanoa and Bain and all those guys right now, they're stocked. In the same way, mental toughness, something I think you see from the Canes right now. To be able to bounce back from the SMU and the Louisville losses and to go on a run and to not, falter down the stretch, I don't care who they played, to make the college football playoff and then get into the playoff and keep that same level of strain, that's a crystal mental toughness thing that I think you're seeing now pay dividends in year 4. Elite talent acquisition at the high school level and the portal level. Miami's going to get theirs. I don't care about the rankings. I don't care about this, that, or that. Miami will get theirs. As long as Cristobal is there, you know what? More often than not, it's probably going to probably end up with them being in a pretty good spot in both the portal and high school recruiting rankings. So I say all that to say, if you want to say they're back or they're real or whatever, you're going to have to deal with Miami here the rest of the way, as long as Cristobal is the head coach. With how they recruit, with the culture they have in place, with how well-backed they are, with the momentum that brand has in the state of Florida to be the school of choice, I think, in the high school state that's just flourished with a bunch of different top prospects. Like, that's going to be, I think, a recipe for a lot of success here for years to come for the Canes. So back, not back, they're for real, and much like that realization we had a couple of years ago when Sark got Texas up and running, you're going to have to account for them here in the context of college football for the foreseeable future. All right? So it's kind of been a Sunshine State-themed episode so far, but I want to finish with this. We've done a lot of these honest looks across college football. I want to take an honest look at the state of the Florida State program as of right now. Before we do, make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. We've done a lot of these so far already on the channel, talking about different programs, and we're probably going to talk about your program here in the future if we haven't already. So again, make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed if you love college football with every fiber of your being. I want to start with this disclaimer. I criticize because I care. I'm looking at that Florida State logo, and I told you all this in different segments, but I'll say it again. I look at Florida State and I think Bobby Bowden, I think Peter Warwick, I think Jameis Winston, I think national titles, I think the war chant, I think Chief Osceola, I think college football blue blood, and I think at its best, one of the most fun and exciting programs in the entire country when it's humming. And that's what Florida State deserves. But you look at Florida State right now, across their own state, they're falling behind. Like Miami's about to play for a national championship. They hired their head coach 2 years after you, and they're playing for a national championship. But JD, they're Miami, they're this, that. They're in your conference, they're in your state, and they hired their head coach 2 years after you. What are we doing here? You're behind Florida. Well, JD, Florida just fired their head coach. How are we behind them? One, they beat you. That's the first part of this. Second part of this is they're taking action. You're sitting on your hands talking about Mike Norvell and his buyout and this, that, and the other. Like, Florida State, the thing that's maybe the most frustrating to me about where they are right now, you are in a spot where you should be taking some drastic measures. And instead, you got a portal class ranked number 57 right now. You went 2-10 last year, 5-7 this year, and you're sitting on your hands talking about a portal class that's 5-7, and you are number 57. Your record's 5-7, as it turns out, and you don't want to make a move to get different leadership in place. Now, I hear the comment section already. JD, if you care so much, why don't you contribute to Mike Norvell's buyout? I like Mike Norvell. I think he's actually a good coach to talk about here in a second. But the nature of the beast is this thing has gone sour at Florida State, and it's not working. And we could sit here and have a conversation about here's why it's not working, here's what's going wrong, here's what needs to be fixed. But at a certain point in time, it's just best for both parties to call it off. It's just best to say, hey, maybe it's you, maybe it's me, but for whatever reason here, this thing has run its course. Thank you so much. We'll part ways, whether we're friends or not. We'll pay this buyout, and we'll go from there. And again, JD, $58 million. That's not a small amount, brother. We don't have $58 million just lying around. Okay, well, LSU had $54 million to fire Brian Kelly, and they went out and got Lane Kiffin. All right? So I don't know what to tell you. If $4 million is really the difference you want to haggle over here as to why you should or shouldn't have fired your head coach. And again, this is not me knocking Mike Norvell, but if you care, you make drastic moves. If you care, you pay the price of caring. And the price of caring here, for my money, is buying out Mike Norvell to $58 million. Well, JD, we're not sure yet. No, you are sure. If you don't think you're sure, you're kidding yourself. If you don't think you're sure, you don't put out a statement in support of your head coach during the season and say, hey, we'll talk at the end of this year. Understand, that's not the deal here. Well, JD, who we go hire? Somebody different. Because you're sitting on your hands, and you're probably going to, if I'm reading the room here correctly, if things don't go well before Halloween of next year, have to imagine Florida State makes a pivot at that point. I don't know the exact buyout number when we get to October 31st for Mike Norvell, but I'm just saying, I think you are not just burning this past year, you're probably burning next year if you're a Seminole fan. And again, that sucks because of what Florida State expects and demands and all those things. And you got a coach that I think you should have hired in James Franklin, who's about to coach against you in Blacksburg here for the foreseeable future in your conference. And you didn't want to make a move and pay a buyout that would have been steep. Hear me clearly, would have been steep. But you didn't want to make a big-time move to go make a big-time head coach hire to set up your program for the success they deserve in the future. And that, to me, is frustrating. So, again, I criticize because I care. I've said my piece. I'm very critical of where Florida State is right now because I think it is just so dissonant with what I expect from that place. But I do want to at least secede this. I have been wrong before in my life. It has happened. My wife can tell you. My parents can tell you. I have been wrong before in my lifetime. One time I would also say I was flirting with wrong was 2021 going into 2022. I'm looking at Florida State coming off of a 5-7 season. I'm like, Jordan Travis is the guy that you're telling me is going to change your football team. Okay, he threw 6 picks and 15 touchdowns. It doesn't really get me all that fired up. Florida State goes out and they win 10 football games. So understand, I would love to be wrong. Mike Norvell has been nothing but good to us on this show. Every conversation we've had with him, he's been phenomenal. I think he's going to be a good coach, whether he's a head coach at his next stop or works back up the ranks. I think he's a good coach. But right now, this is a bad fit. This is a bad situation. So Florida State, consider this your intervention to get healthy. We care too much about you. We've seen you at your best. We've seen the light in your eyes before, Florida State. We need to get that back. And it's not going to be an easy road. It's going to probably be one that's a little bit bumpy and painful and embarrassing. But you got to go through that to get back to where you expect to be. Because from where I'm sitting, more of the same will get you more of the same. And more of the same is not what you deserve at a place like Florida State. So that's my honest look at Florida State. And you can't tell us we're not critical, man. Because that's how we feel about the Noles right now. Cato, Florida State started so hot with the win over Bama, and we were holding our expectations a little bit loosely as to that preseason win total and what they would accomplish, and then the wheels came off the wagon, man. Thoughts on the Noles here, man? Honest look on the situation in Tallahassee.
Yeah, first I wanted to note that you were on the front lines of James Franklin being the guy that should be at Florida State. Virginia Tech number 5 transfer portal class right now. What do you
Must
think
be
he would?
nice.
What
Must
do you
be nice.
What do you think he would have done with the Florida State logo?
Dude, come on.
On his back. He's doing this in the same
on,
conference
dude.
in Blacksburg. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm curious, do you think the 13-1 season conference championship snubbed from the college football playoff, ultimately the 4-team model, do you think that has bought him the couple years that he has now? I mean, 7 wins in 2 years is not great, but do you think that might be some of the reason why they're still holding on to him? I think, how much do you think, we talked about how cutthroat this industry is for the coaches.
Yeah.
We've seen people get kind of, feels like irrationally hired, just kind of just like a rash decision. How much does winning a conference championship, how much runway does that buy you? Notably, Florida State, I think they have the number 13 high school class they brought in, so pretty good high school class right now. But what do you think that is as far as how the relationship is with Florida State and Mike Norvell, that seeing that in 2023 he did have them at the top of college football?
It's a fair thought and a good question. I think it probably factors into some degree. I wonder what the weight is from that plus the buyout. Mm-hmm. My guess would be buyout is weighted a touch more heavily, with it being $58 million. It's just so tough because you're seeing schools like Penn State make big moves, like LSU make big moves, and you're like, if we're Florida State, view ourselves as a school like that. Like James Franklin was a Drew Aller drive away from playing for a national title last year, and they're discontent. Different situations, totally understand that, but I think the nature of being impatient, as much as it sucks, is almost a prerequisite right now in college football. And so if that was the logic, I don't fault them for that. But at the same time, the decline was just so sharp. Like for it to go from 13-1 to 2-10, and then you're just like, golly, like do we just offset those two and say those 2 years didn't happen and 5-7 we're to that now? I don't know how you process that if you're Florida State. So I think you probably have to some degree factor that in, but man, it's tough to unsee some things, and 2-10 does not curry a lot of favor either.
Yeah, I think that plus the standing of the other teams in the state, both trending in the right direction. And honestly, you could argue, I think one of the bigger reasons why making a move would have been well warranted is look who was just playing in the ACC title game, man. This conference is so gettable. It is so open. And we just had 2 teams playing in the conference title game that are more known for basketball than football. And you have one of the most prominent brands in college football. I mean, the expectations are high, and teams with low expectations are putting themselves on a stage and putting themselves in a position to play in the postseason. And you'd like to think if you put a lie detector on Manny Diaz and Tony White at Virginia, like they wouldn't mind that logo and those resources and being able to put themselves in the conference championship game and better off than the situations they're in right now. So interesting for sure. I think I meant Tony Elliott, not Tony White. But yeah, it's tough times.
Florida State, yeah.
It's tough times right now for sure. It's a weird situation, man. It's just such a hard fall off and such an awkward position to be in. But if you're claiming to be, like you say, one of those brand names that takes yourself seriously and wants to see greatness, I mean, you got to go get it. You got to make some rash changes. So I do agree with you there. I'm just curious what kind of runway he earned himself with some of the past good experiences they had at Florida State, you know?
No, I love your take, too, of the Tony Elliott and Manny Diaz angle. Like, if you were going to jump into the coaching carousel pool, water was pretty nice this time of year. Like, we had Kiffin in there. We had Franklin in there. You could have gone after the hot coordinator and said we want to go after Hartline or Will Stein. It's like, dude, if you were going to jump in, we only get like every 3 years, I think, a carousel that has this much juice to it. This was kind of the year to jump in, no? It just like Florida State sitting on the edge of the pool, not wanting to dip their toe in because like, it might be a little bit chilly. You got to jump in, man. You got to jump in and make some moves and live with the results.
Yeah, and like last parting thing, like
I love it.
We remember last offseason when there was just many, it seems like a topic of the last couple off seasons, Clemson and Florida State fighting with the ACC. Are they going to another conference? Or can we get more revenue than everyone else? Yada, yada, yada. Maybe just worry about the field, man. Like, y'all are 2 of the biggest brands in college football, national championship winning brands in this century. And you're on the outside looking in the postseason, man. Y'all are either playing in a bowl game that's not respectable or not playing one at all, man. Like, let's worry about between the white lines, man, before we worried about if we're going to join the SEC or whatever. Like, I think it's not. I think it's ironic and not an accident that the 2 teams that looked at themselves as almost high and mighty in the ACC all of a sudden find themselves in a little bit different scenarios than they probably imagined here this year in the last couple years.
I was a sophomore in high school, in the second to last row of the Rose Bowl watching Florida State beat Auburn to win a national championship. Not because I had a dog in the fight, because through my dad's work, someone gave him tickets like minute of, and it was like, you want to go? I was like, you kidding me? We're skipping school. But I will never forget that fan base in the Rose Bowl doing the war chant. I was like, this is different, dude. So it's tough.
You know where Caden Smith is on his college football dynasty when it comes to head coaching. I'm at Florida State right now, bro. I had to bring us back. You know what I mean?
Somebody had to.
I hated to see it. So I'm not saying I'm the next man for the job if Mike Norvell's time is done there. But let's just say I have a blueprint, and we're playing in the postseason here. Might be 20, 30 something, but we're getting it done over here. So it's one of those schools, man. I think college football is better when Florida State's better. So hopefully they trend in that direction the next couple of years. It's just better for us all.
You've been out there too before, I remember, with different discussions. But
yeah, man, it's a sick campus.
Made your way to Tallahassee before, so both virtually and in person.
Yeah.
Caden Smith checking the box for the Knowles there.
Yeah, no, I'll say this. After visiting Florida State, I was in college, visited Florida State with some friends. I have much more respect for them winning a national championship. There are a lot of distractions out in Tallahassee. It's a big college town with good weather and a lot to do. So the fact that them boys were able to win a title, double salute to Jameis and those guys for getting it done.
We're going to do it then.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
Do it big then. Caden, great stuff as always, man. Hey, Florida State, you heard it here, man. Want to give our guy a call, give him a headset. Just saying, good things been happening for him and his dynasty. Good things happening on this show, man, because of y'all. Again, going to be in Miami here in a matter of days. We're fired up. If you can't tell now, we've mentioned Miami like 5 or 6 times throughout this show. We're juiced. It's going to be awesome. We appreciate y'all allowing us to get out there. Y'all make the show go for Caden Smith on the ones and twos and the takes and on the headset potentially if Florida State plays their cards right. For your boy, J.D. PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all